Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Lindsey series. This is the biggest district in Lincolnshire, containing 188 civil parishes. Without further ado, here's today's offering. Welcome back to East Lindsey once again, folks. My tripod is wobbling. Hopefully that's okay now. Are we straight? Are we level? I hope so. Right, so behind me here you can see there's a building with a half-thatched roof, this one here. That there is an old pub. It was called the Marmion Arms. Now, that pub has got an interesting story to it, but if you come to this place, you don't come to see that, you come to see what's opposite it in its car park. We'll see what that's all about as we take a walk around Haltham. The East Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles, 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Haltham, Homestead in a wood. Welcome to Haltham, a village at the foot of the Lincolnshire Wolds. It's more accurate to term this one a hamlet these days because its church is redundant. Located 4 miles south of Horncastle, Haltham sits on a former Roman road, although there's no evidence from that period that now remains. The name derives from the Old English words holt and ham, together meaning homestead in a wood. It does have a full Sunday name that it's uncommonly referred to as, the rather posh sounding Haltham on Bain, in reference to its siting on the similarly named river. It appeared in the Domesday Book as Holtha and had 15 households at that time. It doesn't have many more than that today, to be honest. No history of Haltham would be complete without a mention of two particular names of nobility, Marmion and Dymoke. The Marmion family held the role of champion to the Dukes of Normandy and came to England with William the Conqueror. To be found in Haltham is the former Marmion Arms, a 16th century pub named in the family's honour. In the car park of that pub, there's a very unusual village landmark with ties to both Wickenby in West Lindsey and parts of Africa. Now, what on earth could that be? Come with me and you'll soon see. So this is Haltham, a very small village lying on what used to be a curved main street which has since been straightened, bypassing it. The main roads here lead to Dalderby, Scrivelsby, Horncastle, Kirby-on-Bain, Wood Enderby and Tattershall. The nearest railway station is at Horncastle. It's a tiny village, yes, but it still possesses some amazing landmarks. Church Lane is where we'll meet the first one. St Benedict's Church is under the care of the Church's Conservation Trust. It's a Grade 1 listed building and was declared redundant in 1977. This is a Norman church dating from the early 12th century. It consists of only a nave, a chancel and a south porch with a peculiar little wooden bell turret set off centre of its west gable. It's built of greenstone rubble with limestone ashlar dressings. In the churchyard is a 14th century cross consisting of an octagonal shaft on a square base. Alterations and additions were made to this church in the 13th, 14th and 15th centuries. In 1842, it was described as an ancient structure which has suffered much from the hand of time. It was restored in 1880 and again in 1891, the latter restoration increasing the seating capacity from 67 to 140. It was open, so let's go in and have a look around. Okay, so the church is open because it's cared for by the CCT. So we can have a little look around. I normally take my hat off in a church, but it's so cold this morning, I'm sure the Lord won't mind. Right, let's have a little snoop around this place and see what this is all about here. So the walls are quite bare because obviously it's not an active church anymore. So I imagine there are still a couple of tablets we can have a look at. Here we go. For the greater glory of God, the chancel of this church was restored in 1880 and the nave in 1891 by the Reverend H. Spurrier and rector of the parish, parishioners and friends. Underneath we've got another one that says, in memory of Henry Cecil Marriott Spurrier, rector of this parish from 1913 to 1949, died in 1954. There aren't any on the other side. The altar is still in place here, look. Wooden altar with a very tattered Bible on top of it there. I would love to go and have a look at that, but I don't really want to. In fact, actually, I can, can't I? Because it's not a consecrated church anymore. I can do this. Of course I can. Let's have a look. Let's see. Reverend John Dymoke, rector, Haltham, 1810. Wow. I don't think I've ever seen a Bible as old as this before. Blimey, it's very it's definitely in need of a bit of restoration, this, isn't it? I'm just gonna try and put it back as it was. There we go. I don't want to damage it. And then this one, I assume, is this another Bible, or is it something else? Haltham Church, something Benedict, oh, St. Benedict. Not quite sure what this is. If anyone knows what this is, let me know. It's not a Bible. Right, let's go more towards the back of the church now and see what's down here. So the pulpit is off to the left here. There we go, high above these box pews. Sometimes see these, and these face this way, don't they? They're not facing towards the pulpit. That's a bit unusual. Let's go to the back here. There is a little, not quite sure, a side chapel is this here. Let's have a look, see what's in here. I think there's like a book exchange in here. Saw it as I walked in. There we go. Yeah, little book exchange here. Look in this little enclave here. Okay. And then at the back, there's a font in this corner, right there. And obviously the vestry behind there. That's about it, really. Nothing much more to say about this place. Beautiful on the outside and a bit bare on the inside, but you expect that from a church that's no longer active. And there is still a guest book as well, as you can see, just there. Right, let's carry on walking around Haltham Village. This is the A153. It starts at a junction with the A607 at Honington and heads east to Sleaford. From there, the road crosses the Witham and follows the Bain Valley north towards Horncastle, where it intersects the busy A158, a place that has frequent traffic jams. Before it reaches Horncastle, though, it bypasses Haltham. It's this village's modern through route. The old main street features one of the most unique landmarks of any village in Lincolnshire, in the car park of the former Marmion Arms. We'll get to that shortly, but here's the pub itself. This is a half-timbered, thatched building and was once a popular conversation spot in the village. This 16th century inn is now a private house according to my sources, although it looks like it might be unoccupied at present. Lord Marmion was a favourite knight of Henry VIII, and there's a love triangle tale involving him that you can find in the links below. The pub is named for the Marmion family, but some sources say it's actually more to do with a poem written by Sir Walter Scott about the Battle of Flodden Field. Scott's Marmion, though, was fictional, as the main male Marmion line died out with the death of the 5th Baron Marmion of Tamworth in 1291. In its car park you'll find this. It's a plane, and I'm sure the aviation experts will be all over this bit. It's a Piper PA-23-250 Aztec with the registration G-BBTJ. This was the old Cooper Surveys Aztec from Wickenby. It's flown as far as Africa doing survey work, but it spent all of its working life registered in the UK. It was built in 1973 and was due to be scrapped at Wickenby until its current owner saved it. It has no engines in it and the seats have been removed, but it's clean and it looks like it's in tip-top condition. It's fortunate to be here, as recently East Lindsey District Council refused planning permission for a new cottage to be built on the car park. On the other side of the pub is a parish notice board. TVI was here. Tick off Haltham, folks. The rest of the village is all about West Lane. It continues to the west and runs into a dead end. It's all residential from here on in, but I suspect this building used to be a pub, as it was called the George. I found no information though to confirm that. The only other property of note up here is Barn Farm, a converted old stable where Olive and Daisy is based. Since 2015, Olive and Daisy, a company named after 2 Labradors, have been making printed linen fabric and a collection of complimentary homewares and gifts. Apparently, it's all done on a 1970s sewing machine by its owner, Louise. Her business has expanded recently into bespoke and made-to-measure soft furnishings, Roman blinds and curtains. I wonder how many of these houses in Haltham have had the Olive and Daisy touch. Okay, now this route was supposed to be a bit longer than this. This is where it's going to end. It's supposed to follow this footpath here. You can see the way markers here, but that sign right there says footpath closed. And I imagine it's because of flooding, because this path crosses not just 1, but 2 stretches of water. One of them is the old River Bain, and the other one is the current River Bain. And on the current River Bain there's a lock, Haltham Lock, and I imagine flooding is the problem. That's probably why you can't access either of them. However, special sections were made for a reason. Let's talk a bit about Haltham Lock. Haltham Lock is one of 12 now disused locks on the former Horncastle Canal. We briefly mentioned the canal in last week's episode, but here's a bit more about it. It ran for 11 miles from the River Witham to Horncastle, largely following the course of the River Bain. It was the brainchild of Sir Joseph Banks, a man of both local and national standing with a keen interest in agriculture and trade. Knowing nearby Tattershall already had a canal, he was keen to link Horncastle to it. This he did by straightening the River Bain and forming the Horncastle Canal. Banks canvassed the support of local merchants and the owners of the estates that bordered the river and formed a steering committee, which instructed his solicitor to draft a parliamentary bill for the proposed canal in 1792. The plans were then reviewed by an engineer we already know a lot about, William Jessup, the man behind the Cromford Canal in Derbyshire. He suggested 2 routes, one from Horncastle to Kirkstead and a second that followed the Bain to Tattershall and joined the River Witham at Dogdyke. It was this latter scheme that was adopted. Jessup also had a say in the locks, but he was overruled. He initially wanted them 54 feet long and 14.3 feet wide. Haltham Lock, like all the others on the canal, is 72 feet long by 15 feet wide. This allowed the boats already plying the Witham and River Trent to use the Horncastle Canal. Jessup did not build the canal. It was overseen instead by William Corley from Cheshire. It opened from the River Witham northwards in stages. There were many financial difficulties. At one stage, the full route of the canal was abandoned in favour of a shortened version that terminated at a wharf in Dalderby. The canal was finally opened throughout in 1802, having cost nearly 4 times the original estimate. By the early 1850s, the canal carried around 9,700 tonnes of coal to Horncastle and around 5,500 tonnes of other goods, including corn and wool, in the other direction. The railway, though, would end all of that pretty quickly. When the Great Northern Railway opened their branch line from Kirkstead to Horncastle via Woodall Spa in 1854, the decline was rapid. It was officially abandoned in 1889, but sand and gravel continued to be transported from Kirkby-on-Bain for another 10 years, while the lower reaches of the canal remained in use until 1910, with boats taking coal from Goole to a wharf in Coningsby. There have been several suggestions that the canal should be restored for pleasure traffic. Despite this being supported by Lincolnshire County Council, this idea has fallen silent since 2003. Lastly, we take a short drive out of the village to catch a couple more bits. On the corner here is Haltham Garage, a family-run business that's been a local institution since 1989. It's run by Mick Gardner, who has over 50 years' experience in the motor trade and runs the business with his 2 sons, Alan and Ian, and his daughter, Linda. And even though we couldn't access Haltham Lock, we can at least drive over the River Bain as we leave the village behind. In doing so, we cross Red Mill Bridge. That's it for another village in East Lindsey. I'll see you next week, folks. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.